was just really an attitude and an urgency which really kind of separated me from the rest.
Hey, podcast listener, you're about to discover insider tips, tricks, and secrets to making more sales and converting more prospects into customers with email marketing. For more information about the Email Marketing Podcast or the Autoresponder Guy, go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. It's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guy, and it's time for episode 85 of the McMethod Marketing Podcast, where you'll discover how to get more customers with less time, with less effort, and make them spend way more with you every time they do business with you. I'm liking that little tagline there. Anyway, today I'll be talking to Bret Thomson, an Australian guy. He's one of Australia's highest paid in-demand copywriting and marketing and conversion strategists. He's a best-selling author, a speaker, a coach, and a mentor to thousands. Now, I actually met Bret at the Titans of Direct Response sort of seminar back in Stamford, Connecticut a couple months back, actually, by the time this episode goes live. And I heard about him before. I knew he was a copywriting guy, and he's a friend of a friend, and I've been wanting to get him on the podcast. So I, popped the question, and he was keen. So we went home. He went to Australia. I came back to Thailand and jumped on Skype, and we had a conversation. And what's interesting about this one is this was very, not just casual, it was a bit philosophical, okay? So I thought, we do talk about, the idea was we're going to talk about research, about how he gets amazing conversions, and the sort of the work ethic that he applies to that research that he does when he writes copy. But what sort of happened is we went down the rabbit hole of talking about what makes you successful at business and in life. So this is my favorite kind of conversation. It's one of the favorite podcasts, my favorite style of podcast that I do is we get to talk about some of the bigger ideas instead of just tactics. Okay, so today is a bit like that. It's a bit philosophical, but there are some stuff you can take away today and apply in your business. Now, to get the show notes for this episode of the McMethod Marketing Podcast, go to themcmethod.com/85. This week's McMaster's Insight of the Week is a book recommendation. And the book is called All the Money in the World. And I picked up this book when I was in the US recently. It's about the Forbes 400. All the guys, all the men and women on the Forbes 400. The 400 richest people in the world. Okay, so the fortunes that these people have is absolutely incredible. I mean, I think the minimum you've got to have to get on that list now is to around about $1 billion, a billion with a B. So this book goes through how they made their money, how they lost it, how they spent it, how it plays into their family. And anyway, it's just a fascinating book, and it's opened my eyes to the level that you can go to in business and entrepreneurship. So it's absolutely worth a read if you like getting into that stuff. It will sort of reframe how you look at some of the companies online, successful people. It's made me kind of look at guys that I might have used to be my idols or used to be people I looked up to. Now I'm thinking, man, those guys are small. You look at these Forbes 400 guys, and that's big. That's really, really big. So I highly recommend you go and check out that book. Now, to get more insights like this, that's not much of an insight. That's just a book recommendation. But anyway, McMaster's, it's a private forum, private community that I run. And so there's a forum called the Library where we talk about some of the book recommendations. And really, it's just about helping my customers and clients get more customers for their business. Okay, and so there's, like I said, there's a forum where I'm in there, and you can hear from other people in the forum. And there's a whole bunch of training products on email marketing and sales funnels and all that great stuff. And if you want to learn more about that, that's at themcmethod.com/McMasters. And I'll see you inside. It's for a monthly fee. Okay, so that's it for now. Let's get into this interview with Mr. Bret Thomson. It's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guy. I'm here with Bret Thomson. Now, Bret is a direct response copywriter. He's one of Australia's highest paid in-demand copywriting, marketing, and conversion strategists. He's got a best-selling book out. He's a speaker, coach, and mentor to thousands. Now, what's really cool is I actually met Bret two or 3 weeks ago, actually, at the Titans of Direct Response, which will be actually 3 months ago by the time this podcast goes live, give or take a few. But we bumped into each other at this conference and talked about copy and talked about Australians coming up in the world and sort of showing these Americans and these big business guys that we're actually as convicts. We got exported out to Australia from England. That we can do marketing too. So we had a good little laugh about that. And I thought afterwards, why not get Bret to come on and talk about some stuff that he's known for, which is really to get some crazy conversions. And according to him, we were just talking that a lot of that comes down to his work ethic when it comes to marketing. So today, it'd be really cool to have a chat about, not about copywriting, not really about stories or any of that sort of after the copywriting and after that fact, to really look at what sort of attitude you've got to have when you approach marketing and approach copywriting before you write a single word to actually get good conversions. So that's that, how to have a good work ethic, or the right work ethic you need to have to be a good marketer. Something along those lines. We'll get into that in a minute. Brett, how are you today?
Mate, I'm pumped and awesome. Thanks for having me, mate. Look forward to it.
Good to have you on the show, man. Good to have another Aussie. We should get more Aussies around.
Beautiful.
All right, so before we talk about some of these work ethic stuff, I've given you a quick intro there. Can you give the listener a bit more of a background on who you are and what you're up to?
Sure, mate. Yeah, look, like you did a pretty good intro, mate. I'm kind of excited to hear what I've got to say after that one, I must admit. But, mate, look, I guess what I love about my story is that I kind of went all through school, didn't read a book, failed English, and a lot of copywriters have similar stories. But I did when I finished school. I remember celebrating never having to work, never having to read a book again for my whole life. I thought it was fantastic. So I started a kind of a 10-year career of being a full-time investor, and I invested about 90% of my income in my social life. That was
I like that, man.
And mate, so I guess that's why I became a good storyteller and I suppose get a lot of confidence and guts to have a go in life. And but mate, I only tell that story to give people hope, right? Because a lot of people think, oh wow, you've in the 7 years you've been doing this, you've generated over $220 million of new sales. But they think that's very rare, but really it's anyone can do it, mate. And I love giving people a lot of hope that if someone like me who went all through school and didn't read can do it, then anyone can as well with the right attitudes and disciplines.
It's really cool, actually. When I've spoken to people before, like I've only just started getting this because I haven't been doing this for as long as you have. But people come in and sometimes the attitude they have is that, wow, you're amazing. I can't believe how you did that. I could never do that. It's just, it's incredible. But, when you've kind of been in the game and you've done this stuff, you realize that it's not that. Like, if you're good and you work hard and you practice and you research, there's no science, there's no magic to it. You get better over time and you get bigger jobs and things just pick up steam and you just gradually build. It's really not that difficult. It's just about keeping, staying in the game, staying in the ring and showing up every day. Absolutely,
mate. And there's no doubt I am definitely amazing. Like, you can't forget that. Not really. But no, but you're spot on, mate. It's funny. Like, look, it's a lot of people look at the outside and think you just must be this amazingly talented person. But I think us as entrepreneurs, and when you're in the trenches, you don't really see yourself as that. I mean, you probably should tell yourself that more. But it really is. It's just you're in the grind and you just going the extra mile, and if anyone's prepared to do what you do, then for sure they'll get the same results. It's not really a matter of skill. I have to try and outwork my competitors because a lot of them are more skillful than me.
Well, let's talk about that, man. We were just chatting about this work ethic thing. I asked you what you wanted to talk about, or what really defines you as a marketer, what sort of sets you apart of the other people. And you mentioned that your work ethic that you bring to copywriting, that you bring to sort of marketing and doing the research. So tell me about that.
Yeah, mate. I guess look, when I first learned copywriting, I'll tell you this quick story. I don't know how much time we got, mate, so I'll try and keep it tight. But I'd started my own business because I thought I had a fantastic idea to kind of motivate kids because I read my first book when I was in my mid-20s. It was called Awaken the Giant Within by Anthony Robbins.
Yep.
And so my whole philosophy on life became personal development, and I became like a walking, talking personal development robot and pretty much burnt all my friends very quickly from that. And mate, so I had this idea, I'm going to teach this to kids between 7 and 13-year-old because I was a dad with twin boys at the time. And mate, so I handed in my resignation after 15 years and kind of jumped in, started my own business. And everyone said, you'll do great, it's fantastic. Everyone thought it was a brilliant idea. And then I learned very quickly that, you can have a good idea in one area, but if you don't understand marketing, then you can lose a lot of money. And And that's pretty much what happened to me, mate. I lost my money, found myself in a marketing seminar, and a guy came up on stage called the Millionaire Maker in Australia, and he said, what I'm going to teach you now is put more money in my bank account than anything I've done my whole life. And I said, right, whatever comes out of this guy's mouth, I'm just going to do it. And he said, it's the art of writing compelling words on paper, better known as copywriting. I went, oh, no. I'd only just started reading, and I hate writing, but I gave it a go. And so that I tell you that story because I had no prior training to this industry. All I knew was if I was going to get good at this, I mean, my first year of business, I'd made $16,000. And that's pretty hard when you bring up a family. I knew I had to hustle hard and really put in so much time studying. So I just followed the path and read all the books that everyone was suggested, all the great books. And a lot of the best gems are in the books that were written, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? And so I studied them, and I did everything that all the others weren't doing. I wrote out sales letters because I had to put money on the table, and then I had to kind of hustle for clients, right? And so in my first year as a copywriter, I went from $16,000 to over $200,000 because I was at seminars. Just every time there was a speaker on stage, everyone would line up waiting for them to kiss their shoes and all that and tell them how awesome. And I'd wait till the crowd died off, and I'd go up and say, hey, I'm a copywriter. I'd love to help you out with your marketing. Because I knew I couldn't, if I didn't, I was only like a week away from, the phone ringing and people asking for money again. So I guess that really was an attitude. It really had nothing to do with skill, did it? It was just really an attitude and an urgency, which really kind of separated me from the rest.
It reminds me of there's a story that Tony Robbins, now that you mentioned him in Waking the Giant Within, he tells this story. Plenty of people tell it about I don't know, I can't remember the actual story who it's about, but basically it's like ancient Greece or something like that, and they go to sail to another land to conquer it, or they get into a fight basically, and they land the ships, and then the commander gets them to burn all of the ships. And all the soldiers see the ships burning, and then they have no choice but to fight their way through the enemy. And lo and behold, they win the fight because they've got no other option. So it's like what you're talking about is you ended up in a situation where you plenty of people talk about this. Your back's up against the wall. This was me in the Philippines, actually. I had $200 left in my bank account. I was about to buy a ticket on the credit card to get home and go get myself a job. And then that was when things started to click. So it's funny how that works. When you finally get to that point, you realize, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes. If I have to work 12, 14, 16 hours a day just to make some money so I can stay in the game and keep doing this, that's what I'll do. When you get to that point, that's really when the magic starts to happen. So
true, mate. I love it. And yeah, that is a good story. You told it really well, by the way. But it is true. It's all attitude, and through that, through persistence. I mean, they talk about the 10,000 hours, and look, I don't know, but I swear I would have done it within the first 3 years. I think I don't know if that's possible, but man, I really had to work hard, and so there's nothing glamorous about it. There's no skill or natural talent that I can share with anyone. It was look, all the gems in anything you do is right. Is stand on the shoulders of the giants before you, isn't it?
Right. One thing that I struggle with personally sometimes is that things are doing pretty well and I'm happy, but I get caught up sometimes. I might look at it might be a marketer, it might be someone who's more successful than me, who they're making more money, they got a bigger business, they're just or whatever, and sometimes I feel like that they're doing it faster than I am, and I start to feel frustrated, or that this isn't always conscious. Sometimes it's just a sort of a negative feeling of like I can't keep up, or I'm not doing as well as I'd like, or and it creates a lot of tension. Or sometimes it might be I'm looking at like Elon Musk, sort of like a billionaire inventor who co-founded PayPal and now is doing the electric car with Tesla, Solar City, just doing some crazy stuff. Or I told you about a book by billionaires, or it's about billionaires, and sort of looking at that, and then sometimes I come back and I look at my own business and I'm like, oh man, what am I doing? This is so small and so tiny and so slow. And I mean, have you ever had to deal with that, in your journey? So not so much, obviously you got to work hard and you got to put that together, but have you ever had to deal with that feeling of like, however fast you're going or however well you're doing, you're still like, oh, it's not good enough?
Right. First of all, I've got to say, I love your honesty in bringing it up. That I believe everyone goes through that, and it's credit to you to admit that and bring it up. And it's something I go through all the time, and I honestly believe that, in some way, nearly every, I'd say a bit of a claim, but I reckon nearly everyone on this earth has some form of them not feeling good enough in some way. That's a bit, it might sound like a big statement, but I know guys who, good friends of mine, they're in $10, $15 million a year, and I'm thinking, wow, man, that's pretty sweet. But, I've been in mastermind groups where it's $50,000 an entry and surrounded by these guys, and it very rarely comes down to strategy. It comes down to them feeling good enough about themselves to go to the next level. And so, mate, the comparison game it's a double-edged sword, right? One side, it can stop you in your tracks, and you could freeze, be intimidated. It could be subconsciously, and your output will be very poor, and you'll beat yourself up, and that can go for some days or weeks or months, maybe years. But the other side of it, you can use that as a motivator, and that's something I have to consciously choose to do sometimes, and use it to get fired up and I mean, here's the thing. I believe you should never compare yourself to others. You should try and be better than others. You just try and be the best you can be, right? And that sounds really nice and a nice little quote, but it's true. You just got to. It's a daily thing for me, mate. I've got to. I see other people really smashing it, and I've got to just make sure I'm on the right side of the fence with this. I heard someone call it SME, which is social media envy. Isn't that cool? So again, you see other people on social media and you think, oh wow, they're really smashing it. And yeah, for me, I've as I kind of touched on before we earlier in the call, I work on my personal development every single day, because if I don't, if there's a void, then I think it's human nature for most people. We kind of fill that void with negative, right? So I can't allow that to happen, because it directly results in lack of productivity, which slows in the money flow. So I have to make sure my cup is full. And the way I see it, and I used to teach this so many years ago when I used to teach kids personal development, but everyone has like a bucket, like a self-esteem bucket, and everyone's got holes in the bucket. So you can read a book and listen to a podcast, go to a seminar and feel pumped up and on fire, but slowly, there's that leaks out. You've always got to keep refilling it, and that's something I've got to do every day. So you're not alone, man, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it's cool.
Well, that's the funny thing is that the reason I brought it up is because sometimes, you're working really hard on it. I get this, and sometimes it's very inspiring to hear a story about guys who are much more successful than I am. But then sometimes, like you said, it does create that freeze of kind of thinking, oh, there's no, like, you feel overwhelmed. Well, there's no way I'm going to catch up, or something like that. And what I've been actually reminding myself, I guess the analogy that I use to break out of that is that of lifting weights. So when you go to the gym and like there's a CrossFit gym here that I've been going. I'm not going right now, but I have been going for a lot of this year. And it's interesting going in there, because I'm a very competitive guy. So I look at another guy, I think, well, he's lifting more than me. I need to be able to be lifting that. But the thing is, if you look at like the whole situation, like take the emotion out of it, you look at it scientifically, the way for me to lift, let's say I'm lifting 200 pounds, or we say 100 kilos, if we're going to say, talking Australian, 100 kilos, and he's lifting 200. The way for me to go and lift 200 is not to just go pick up a 200 kilo bar. The way to lift 200 is to today lift 100, tomorrow lift 102.5, the day after lift 105, and basically go up in small increments like that. Scientifically, that's just how the body works. So I can't go from 100 to 200. And so, with business, to go back to the gym, you've got to be a little bit zen about the whole thing, where you take your emotions out of it, you just look at, all right, well, what needs to happen for me to go the next step? And you sort of map out that thing, and what's reasonable, because it's not reasonable for me to go, well, I want to be a billionaire tomorrow. That's not going to happen. Or I'm not going to make $100 million tomorrow. But what I can do is get a little bit better tomorrow than I was today. And then so on like that. And once you take the emotion out of it and start looking at what the path to going and making $1 billion is, what's that Chinese proverb? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's that.
Yeah. So spot on, mate. Spot on. It's constant, never-ending learning, isn't it? And never-ending growing, I suppose. And that's look. And I know. I mean, you're a great example. You're surrounded and interviewing some of the greatest minds on the planet right now in this area. And mate, I'm sure this topic comes up so often. In some of the greatest, with all the best entrepreneurs in any field. it's constantly building up on yourself and trying to get that next level. I don't think it ever really stops.
It's funny, yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I'm in this book about billionaires that I'm reading. It talks about Larry Ellison, who's the third richest guy on the planet, I think, and how he competes basically with a couple of the Microsoft guys, Bill Gates and Paul Allen is one of them, Steve Ballmer, who are they're all around the same level, 20, 30, 40, $50 billion in terms of their net worth. And Larry, this guy, he's forever competing with them, trying to have a bigger boat or a bigger house or that sort of thing. So it's just funny to notice that you could be one of the richest guys on the planet and you're still, you can still fall into that trap of feeling like you need to compete with someone else. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just that it's a hamster wheel. You're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, no, that's right. As long as you're on the right side of it, because those guys, they know how to turn that energy into productivity. And I think that's the difference, because a lot of people, they get intimidated and that envy kind of makes them doubt themselves. And out of all the hundreds of people I've mentored, there's some really skillful, talented people, right? And they're just, and I can give them the best strategy and the best copy in the world, but a lot of them just don't do it because there's a fear there, and these are highly intelligent people, and it really comes down to their self-worth, and it's so it is a constant thing with entrepreneurs, mate, and I guess the better you get at trying to channeling that into positivity and keeping yourself in the right zone, then the best success you'll get from it.
One thing that also interests me, we'll get to the original topic we're going to talk about is work ethic and how it applies to research, but this is fascinating. I love this kind of stuff. It gets me so pumped up. One thing I'm interested in hearing about is, like, sometimes I think, like, it's I get caught up in this, is thinking that, well, I need to, my business needs to be bigger. I need to have more money so I can not necessarily buy more stuff, but it's just, it needs to be bigger, better, whatever, more automated than it is now, something other than what it is right now. And the trap of that is that it's, again, that hamster wheel. I might not be competing with someone in terms of bikes or, yachts or, personal jets or something like that, like Larry Ellison is, but it's still the same kind of thing where I'm always comparing right now with what could be and creating a sort of a sense of dissatisfaction. And so it brings up this question of, do you play the business game because you feel like that's what you need to do to just, I guess, keeping up with the Joneses? Or do you say, hey, look, I'm making some good money right now. Like in my case, I could be like, well, I'm making some good money right now. I'm in Thailand. Why don't I just chill out, sleep in every day, ditch the alarm clock, go to the pool, sit in the sun, read a book? Why don't I do that every day? Because a lot of us, once you start getting good at making money, you sort of get into a position like that where you don't really need to hustle as hard as you used to. You get the days when your back's against the wall, but then you've got times when money's flowing freely and you don't really have to worry about much. And then it's like, well, do you take time to smell the roses, or do you stay hungry? Because there's sort of like, on the one hand, you've got guys like Tony Robbins and motivational gurus who probably preach that you should always be growing and always be trying to get somewhere. But then there's the other side of it where everybody dies. And we're all going back into just the same place where we came from, right? We're going back into the ground. And that's just a fact of life. So does it really make sense to bust your balls all of your life to build a big business?
Mate, well, that's deep, buddy. A deep question. and the thing is, like, the cool thing about that question, John, is the answer will be different to who you're talking to. See, right now, at this stage of my life, well, actually, I'll pre-frame that. A number of years ago, I got comfortable. Like I had some great recognition in Australia, doing some events with a few other people, making some good money, and just kind of still working hard, but just really just not really pushing myself, if that makes sense. And here's what I think, and this is touching back on something else. When I see someone really smashing it right now, in the years I've been in this game, I know that things happen in waves. You look at celebrities; they could be the flavour for a year, and then they're out of the spotlight again. It's the same with entrepreneurs and business owners. It's very rare to see someone on top of the game all the time. And maybe Dan Kennedy's an exception, but he's a bit of a freak. But I see people come up in the spotlight, and I used to think, oh gosh, they're really smashing it. And I used to sometimes doubt myself and think, oh, maybe I should do doing things better and faster and harder. But then they just kind of go out of the spotlight again. And I've watched that over a number of years. So I know that things happen in waves, and even with myself. So when I was one of those kind of victims, where I was everyone knew me in Australia and I was getting great recognition. Then I kind of got comfortable, and then I let other people kind of surpass me. So I guess I tell you that because you're asking me this question right now at the time where I'm really hustling and hungry more than ever before. Right, I'm on the up curve to the point where, and this might scare some people, but my day starts at 3 a.m. in the morning. Right?
Are you serious? Dude, I was at Titans at one of these dinners, and I was speaking to one of the guys from Early to Rise, and he was saying he got up at 4:30 a.m., and I could not believe it. And now you're telling me that you get up at 3 a.m.?
3 a.m., man. You know why? Because no one else is doing it. That's right.
What time do you go to bed, though?
9:30.
How do you manage to go to bed at 9:30 and wake up at 3? And then you stay up all day?
All day, mate. All day. Yeah. And that's not something I'm boasting about, right? I don't really. Yeah.
I think the thing that boggles me is that, like, if I get a few nights sleep at 6 hours, I get depressed, man. My mindset goes off and I start, self-doubt creeps in and that. Whereas if I get a couple like 8-9 hour nights, I feel like $1 million.
Yeah, that's true. It depends what you do in your 6 hours. It depends what you do in your waking hours, really. So, mate, I don't mind telling you what I do, right? Because I know it's not duplicatable. I know it's not something I teach. It's just a stage. I mean, I won't do it all my life because I'll probably, in a number of years, say, you've got to have balance and you've got to spend more time with your family. I'll probably have one of those talks and we can have another conversation later on about it. But right now, man, you're talking to me at the time where I'm going so hard because I'm achieving. I've got such big goals, and I'll tell you where it happened. Right, I was went to a seminar. This is only I don't know 4 or 5 months ago, and a guy by the name of Eric Thomas. Right, he's called
the motivational guy.
Yeah. So he came out to Australia and was doing a talk, and I was surrounded by a couple hundred people in the seminar. Well, probably actually about 400 people, and he's talking about how he goes 120%, right? And anything he does, he yells everything. He's so awesome. And he says most people, they're going, 60%, 70% and all the rest. So he took a survey in the crowd. He goes, who reckons they're going 120? And no one really put their hand up. He said, what about 100%? And I put my hand up and looking around, hoping everyone would see me, because I was thinking I was going pretty hard. And then he kept on asking, and there was a bunch of people putting their hand up at 60 and 70%. And I thought, God, how embarrassing, man. Why don't you just work harder? And then he told me what he does for 120%. And he gets up at 3 a.m. because his competitors get up at 6 or 7 and he's got like a 4-hour start on him. And he told me his routine. And I was going, wow, that is a whole new level. And he came back and did another session. And then he asked the same question again to the audience. And this time I put my hand up for 60%. Right, because I thought I was going to 100%, but mate, this.
Well, sometimes
right
I
now,
am. That's the thing, man. I'm like, man, I'm doing pretty good. I wake up at 6 or 7 most days, and get started, and I'm pretty organized. And then I hear about guys like you, crazy, doing shit like this, 3 a.m. That's insane.
Yeah, look, it is, but yeah, look, I'm kind of look, I've got a lot of urgency with what I'm doing right now, right? It's and I guess I'm fueled by a lot of things right now. I've got, as you know, I told you, my beautiful bride, Lanika, and I have got 6 kids between us. I've poured, I was kind of the black sheep in my family where everyone's done the traditional route where they've got a job, or got an education, got a deposit for a house and stuff like that, where I've just kind of just jumped into business, throwing money at business all the time, and just so many peaks and troughs, right? And then I found out a little while ago my younger brother just sold a property for $1.8 million, right? And I love my brother, but that annoyed the crap out of me. Right? I thought, man, he's just done it seemed like and that was a fuel. I said, I've got to really hustle, right? And then also my kids, and that kind of gets me out of bed every morning, and some bigger financial goals that I'm going for as well. And so I guess for me, mate, it's the getting up at 3 a.m. sounds absurd and ridiculous to a lot of people, but for me, it's fantastic because I knew that a lot of people in my industry who are more talented than me and stuff like that, and I have to study and I have to research, I have to work on my personal development. So, in those 3 hours, I work on my personal development. I kind of psych myself up. I go back into the books and research and write and do all that kind of stuff. So by the time it comes around 6 or 7 o'clock, man, every day I've got 3 or 4 hours of really good, solid stuff. So I don't give myself time to. It's very rare at this stage where I have a lot of self-doubt, and it still happens, but my routine is really kind of shaped to really get me in that right zone. So
interesting, man.
yeah.
So one thing that, because I mean, we said we're going to talk about research, so I feel like we've got to squeeze this in somehow. So you're talking now. I've heard about the work ethic and some of the mindset stuff. Tell me how. I mean, you mentioned that one thing that puts you ahead of other copywriters and other competitors and people in the game is that you're willing to go to an insane level in terms of the work that you're going to put in to make sure something wins. So with all this extra time and the amount of commitment that you have to something, it sounds like you put a whole lot more effort into doing your research before you write a word of copy, right?
Yeah, look, I'm glad you asked, man. I'll tell you where it all started. See, when I first started, I learned from a guy by the name of Pete Godfrey, and he's now one of my best mates. And so I got very good very fast because to write successful copy. I think the two big things are, I think, is coming up with a big idea, and out of that you get the big headline, and the other thing is writing like a conversational tone. Right, and there's 1,001 things, but I think those two, if you can nail those two, you can get pretty good success. So I started getting some huge success really early on in my career, and then people started offering to pay me some good money to write copy. And until and I thought I was a bit of a legend in my own mind because I had no evidence to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And until one time, one of my campaigns failed. And I was like, what? But I just couldn't understand it. I just did not like that at all. So then what I realised is I found out why I kind of rang up clients and found out why they didn't buy. And it just gave me a good indication that I hadn't done enough research. And I really understood that to get good conversions, you don't have to be a great writer. You just have to understand the psychology of your market and really what they want and how to communicate it to them. So that started. Now I spend probably 70% of my time researching the market and interviewing people. A lot of people, like if you have like an average copywriter, they'll say, yeah, I'll take on someone's project, no worries. They'll say, oh, go fill out this questionnaire, and the business owner will fill out the questionnaire saying, this is who my market is, this is their 3 daily frustrations, this is the problems that keep them up at night, this is this and that. And then the copywriter will go, oh, thanks for that, and they'll start punching out copy and give it back to them. And a lot of the times it doesn't really work because the business owner is not the client, right? And that's the big distinction. So I say, when I get them to fill that out and say thanks very much, I said, can I also get a list of your top 10 clients, most recent clients? And then I'll ring these clients up and I'll just say, g'day, my name's Bret Thomson. I'm working with Bob. I asked Bob for a list of his top 10 clients and you're at the top of my list. So I wonder if you've got a couple of minutes, I'd love to ask you a few questions because I want to help Bob get his product out there and help people. And I do that call over and over and over again. Hey, mate, that's where all the gems come from. That's those interviews. And I'll tell you one other little distinction too. I used to ask really dumb questions like, what headline do you think would work these days? And you just don't ask their opinion, right? The way you get the gold is you just ask them to tell their story. So how did you come across Bob? And inside that, because they can't fudge a story, right? If you ask them their opinion, people have this deep insetted ego to try and give you the right answer or to try and sound smart. But if you ask them to tell their story, then it eliminates any of that and you just get the pure gold. And inside that story, you can ask them, who are you looking at? Why didn't you buy from them? And you kind of dig deep in that. So that's kind of the extra level that I go to when I write copy, because by the time I've gone through those kind of calls, I know exactly what the market is feeling right now, not 2 years ago, but right now. And yeah, that's just one of the things I do, mate. And I know not a lot of other copywriters do that, but really it's my reputation on the line. If I want to get good conversions and maintain my reputation, I've got to go that extra mile and spend more time on the researching than I do in the writing.
Good stuff, man. I like it. I like that idea of getting their story instead of not asking them about their facts or headlines, that kind of thing. But
yeah.
We're right on time, man. So before we go, though, if someone's listening to this and wants to learn more about you or buy one of your products or anything like that, where's the best place for them to go and do that?
Oh, cool. Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. Look, I've got a blog which is probably a little bit neglected last couple of months, but I've got a lot of really cool teachings on there at bretthomson.com. I've also, by the time this recording comes out, I'll have a site which will be up and going called marketingmakeoverhq.com. But if you really want to learn a more deeper level what I do and how to get the cool results that I've got, it's all wrapped up in a book called Client Rush. So you go to clientrushbook.com. I'm really proud of that book because as an information marketer, I mean, I've put programs together which are worth $1,000, $1,500, and I've invested a lot of those as well. But I can honestly say the stuff that I've put in that little $25 book is probably equal to a $1,500 home study course. So yeah, that's a good way to get introduced to what I do.
Good stuff, man. I'll have links to those sites in the show notes at themethod.com. Bret, thanks for coming on the show, man.
My pleasure, mate. You make it really easy, and I love what you're doing, man. I'm a big fan of yours. So just keep charging, buddy.
Cheers.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you want to discover more insider tips, tricks, and secrets about driving sales with email marketing, sign up for daily email tips from the autoresponder guy. Go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Sign up, confirm your email address, and I'll send you daily emails on how to improve your email marketing and make more sales via email. You'll find out why open rates don't matter and the 7-letter word that underlies all effective marketing and much more.